All voting aye, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Item 3 is pass an ordinance amending Chapter 6, Animals of the Code of Ordinances relative to keeping of chickens on property located in a residential zoning district. Upon its first consideration, is there a motion, please?
So move.
Second.
Been motion and second. I believe before we have any sort of council or public comment, can I call upon city staff to just give a brief update of what the ordinance is that we're voting on, the council voting on, please?
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, this first reading for their keeping of chickens ordinance was brought from the September 6th council committee meeting, and the motion at that meeting was developed into ordinance form, and I'll just run through those items there that's listed in this ordinance. Basically allows residential properties in the city limits to maintain a limit of 3 chickens, hens only, that does not include roosters. Those chickens are kept in a totally enclosed structure, and then that pen area has to be 25 feet from a nearby residential dwelling. Land use or a permit will be required for that, just a one-time permit to establish that in our districts and in backyard areas only, basically behind the house is where those pens would be located.
Very good. Thank you. We do have a motion and a second. I'll open it up to council comments.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, Mr.
I would like to propose a couple amendments to this, if I may. The Kunkles, who this originally started with, have kind of a unique lot in that their rear yard would not qualify under this, number one. So I guess I would like for it to include side yard as well as a rear yard, as long as they've got a double lot on their particular property to where the side yard would work for the 25-foot distance, but the rear yard won't. As well, I would like to see it include ducks. And before we go too far with that, I think this is one of those things that's kind of a trial and error type situation. I mean, there have been people in the city that have had chickens since 2006 or well before, and I don't believe there's been a whole lot of complaints there. So I guess I would ask council, consider that ducks and chickens, not ostriches, not anything else. Let's give this a shot and see how it works.
That motion has been amended, or at least offered to be amended. Do we go to that right now, or do we still have discussion?
You need a second.
We can go to second.
Second.
We go to a second. Beg your pardon. It's been motioned and seconded to pass the ordinance as read with the 2 amendments by Councilman Miller. And this requires a roll call vote, or is this a voice vote?
You can have discussion on this if you want, on the amendment itself.
Okay.
And then it'll be a voice vote.
Okay, so this will be opened up before a voice vote if the council so decides?
Open up to the public as well.
Yes, of course.
Could I ask Mr. Miller, the side yard, are there some restrictions to that, or are you suggesting any side yard?
I don't know how you restrict it anymore, I guess.
Yeah.
There's going to be situations that, it's a side yard. So in their particular instance, they've got a corner lot and a house that's on a lot, the second lot in, and they can meet the 25-foot distance from a residence.
Okay, I guess that's what I was wondering, if it meets the 25-foot separation. Would that be a restriction if it didn't?
I think the 25-foot restriction has to stay, just for neighboring property owners. Okay. And I guess the other thing, there probably are some variables in the city for that, but I got to believe that the majority of people here aren't going to abuse this. They don't want something that's unattractive on their property where they're going to, maybe we have to keep a setback requirement there if you're going to be in the side yard or something along those lines. I believe it says here that it has to be, where's it at?
25.
Well, it's the 25 feet, but it was also something along the lines, if you read the whole ordinance, that it needed to be not in front of the house or something along those lines. So maybe there's a setback requirement that is added there, so it isn't in the side yard in front of the property.
Yeah.
Point being, Stephanie, were you going to add something?
So I think specifically what you're suggesting is then in section 6-115, item B3, where item 2 of that, Roman numeral 2, says located at least 25 feet from any residential dwelling, and it goes on, item 3, situated in the rear yard of the property as that term is defined in Chapter 29 of zoning of this code. I think you're suggesting item 3, say rear yard or side yard.
Which would keep that back from the front of the property, from the front of the house. if it was
Correct,
in the
by
side
the
yard,
side yard
correct?
definition. And there won't be that many side yards where meeting the 25-foot setback could be done.
That's what I was,
So that's your specific request is section 6-115, item B, 3, Roman numeral 3, adding side yard.
And ducks.
and ducks.
And ducks.
Ducks and chickens.
Any further comments?
So in 6-115B1, where it talks about chickens, is that where we add ducks, or
6B1.
let's just clarify exactly where?
Let's hear from Mr.
I
Moore.
think that would be the appropriate spot. The keeping of
Anytime.
chickens and ducks are allowed.
Let's hear Mr. Moore.
Anywhere where the word chickens appears throughout the ordinance, you'd have to say chickens or ducks. And I don't know, frankly, if you want to prohibit roosters, I don't know what the duck version of that is.
It's a very good
drake.
Do we just
drake.
say male
The
ducks?
drake.
No male
Drake in the
ducks?
audience.
No male ducks?
Drake, is that it? Good.
No drakes?
What are they called?
Drakes. Come on.
Any further discussion by council or questions? Nick?
So ducks are allowed, but I don't know that there's a reason to eliminate drakes because drakes don't create a noise
Right.
concern. Yeah. To my knowledge. If anybody can speak to drakes.
I think you're probably right.
Okay.
Let's keep it at roosters. And
Yeah,
that's-
yeah.
Any further discussion, question by council? I will open up this reading to folks within the public that wishes to speak. I see, first of all, a unique group of young people in the same shirt. I'd like to hear from you folks first. Is anybody here that's going to please come on up? Make sure the microphone's right where you're talking, and then give your name. Just give your first name would be just fine.
Good evening. My name is Sean Radke, and I live at 3903 Maryhill Drive. Our group is in favor of the urban chicken discussion. We are a First Lego League team here in Cedar Falls. Our name this year is KFC, Kids for Chickens. Our project this year is Animal Allies, and we have been researching the way people and animals interact with each other. The reason we have selected the urban chicken problem as our project is that it relates to Cedar Falls, and this is our city. In our research, we have come to the idea that people can act on facts, or they can act on emotions. A good decision is one based on facts rather than emotions. Tonight, our team would like to present to the City Council our thoughts on the pros and cons of urban chickens in Cedar Falls, Iowa.
Thank you, Sean. Do we have anyone else?
Yeah.
Go ahead, young man.
Serious.
We have a series of folks. Great.
My name is Hogan Fusel, and I live at 2425 Eric Road. These are arguments against having urban chickens. Number 1, fear of change. This is usually an emotion, not a fact. People do not like change and therefore have concerns about the impact chickens will have on the community. Number 2, noise of chickens. From our research, hens tend to be rather quiet, where the rooster is louder. Our solution is to state in the ordinance that only hens are allowed, no roosters. The second thought is to look at the City Code of Ordinances. Code 18 addresses noise, and Section 6 through 58 explains about dogs and cats. There is a 15-minute tolerance on this type of disturbance. Let's add chickens and cross that off the list. Number 3, bird flu. In our research, we discovered that the bird flu cannot be transmitted to people. Number 4, nuisance of chickens. We looked at the potential smell of chickens' waste. Once again, we found the city code already addresses this concern under Section 18, nuisances regarding offensive smells. Our group feels grateful to the city council members for already having in place City Code of Ordinances. This already takes care of the concerns regarding urban chickens. Thank you.
Thank you, Hogan. Appreciate that. We have another speaker? Again, just your first name is okay, but you really got to talk loud, okay, so we can hear you.
Hi, my name is Chase, and I live at 727 Stanwood Drive. These are the arguments for urban chickens. Number 1, chickens eat bugs. Less bugs in your backyard without using man-made chemicals. Number 2, chickens eat weeds. That is right, chickens will eat weeds. Again, less chemicals on lawns and in our water system. Number 3, chicken companions. Chickens can be good companions or pets. If you start interacting with them as baby chicks, they will be accustomed to people. They also create the opportunity for children to learn responsibility as they take care of the chicken. Number 4, eggs. Chickens provide eggs. Articles have indicated that the eggs of urban chickens are healthier with more vitamins. With Cedar Falls being a blue zone, healthier is good. Say yes to urban chickens and let the people of Cedar Falls have freedom in choosing their companion. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Jace. Anyone else? Be sure you talk pretty loud, okay?
My name is Grace, and I live at 302 Spruces Drive. The KFC Kids for Chickens believe that chickens are good. The cons have already been addressed by the existing city code of ordinances. The pros are helping our community to be a healthier and freedom-based choices for our people. Our group hopes that you will look at the facts and vote yes for urban chickens. Thank you again for the opportunity to present to you tonight, Kids for Chickens.
Thank you, Grace. Anyone else?
Hi, my name is Grant Roth, and I live at 302 Spruces Drive. While researching, our LEGO team has learned about the terrible conditions for chickens at large egg farms, where they are sometimes allowed less than 1 square foot per bird. Pet chickens would take up very little room and still live in luxury compared to the corporate farm conditions. You give your chickens love, and they will be healthier and happier, and they will give you better eggs. Our research has shown that there are a lot of benefits to having chickens as pets when compared to cats and dogs. Since there are already city ordinances covering all the issues that might result from irresponsible chicken owners, please allow chickens for responsible citizens. Please vote yes please vote yes to allow urban fowl.
Thanks, Grant. Make sure that microphone's right there, please. There, perfect.
My name is Will Hoffman, and I live at 408 Bonita Boulevard. As a member of a family that loves to garden, chickens make the perfect pets. They eat weeds, insects, and help compost garden waste, providing fertilizer for the garden. I see no reason to ban chickens from urban neighborhoods. Even if the owners are irresponsible, they are still covered in nuisance ordinances. Please vote yes for urban fowl, as I think it will make the community more healthy and fun.
Thank you, Mr. Hoffman. Any further KFC folks? None. Thank you for presenting, and thank you very much for keeping it underneath 5 minutes apiece. They don't get that, but most of you do. I'll now open it up to other folks in terms of public discussion. Go ahead, Mr. Wyckoff, if you like.
Thank you. Larry Wyckoff, 4241 East Park Road. As the son of a mom and dad that were farmers, I really, truly applaud the idea of keeping chickens on the farm. So for once, I'm going to agree with John Runchey and stay with the idea of keeping chickens on the farm. And as I've said before, don't come up with a problem without a solution. My stepson is buying acreage south of Cedar Falls here, and he has a chicken coop. So all kinds of room to rent out, or I think he'd do it for free, just to have something in that chicken coop. So I really would appreciate keeping the chickens in a coop on a farm, and for once I'm siding with John Runchey.
Thank you, Mr. Wyckoff. Any further discussion? Yes, sir.
Hi, David Grant, 2010 Clay Street. So right in the middle of town. Would love to have chickens. With respect to the previous speaker, not everybody can go out south of town, right? It's a cost issue. And it would deprive these articulate young men and women here the chance to actually interact with, see on a day-to-day basis what it means to care for another animal, right? And that's absolutely absolutely crucial and critical to their growth and development. And I think they hit it right on the head. They said one of the biggest things we have is a problem of fear. It's a fear of change. Well, these guys know it. So I ask you all to not be chicken and vote for chickens. Because these guys, they're not it. These are our future. Let's vote for our future. They said every single point I wanted to come up with. So let's not be chicken. Let's go for it. Vote for this thing. It's time that we made a little bit of an incremental change, just like Councilman Miller said. So thank you.
Thank you, David. And thank you, folks, again, KFC, for saying most of what David was going to say.
Yeah, really.
Just kidding. Any further discussion or comments by the public? I will now circle back to council. Any further discussions towards this ordinance before we move to the vote on the amendment?
I'd just like to compliment the speaker, the young people who spoke this evening. It's very difficult to speak in front of people. It's very difficult to understand city code, but you've managed to get both of those down really well. And so you should be proud of what you've done tonight. Your parents should be proud of you. And if you're probably not old enough to vote, but I'd encourage you to run for council.
Thank you. Anything further? Very good. The ordinance has been motioned and second. We do have the two amendments offered by Mr. Miller to the side yard with the encroachment not interfering with the front encroachment, and to include ducks.
Mr. Mayor, I'm trying to wrap my head around the side yard aspect of it, and I'm just wondering how that's going to work as far as, I think the original restrictions we were putting on it were to kind of keep it out of basically the front view and away from the neighbors, but if we're putting it in side yards, is that kind of going to defeat the original intent, which was to sort of isolate the coop, I guess, for lack of a better term?
Well, I think to Stephanie's point, I don't think there's going to be very many instances that a side yard is going to work with that 25-foot setback, especially in, say, Mr. Green's neighborhood or in, the heart of the city. Those houses are too close for where a 25-foot isn't going to work, no matter what you do.
So it takes care of itself in essence of who can do that based on the 25-foot.
And I may be wrong there, but I think the Kunkel's situation is pretty unique in that they've got a double lot. So I can't imagine we're going to see it a whole lot, but again, if we do, and we find that there's an issue, I think we've got the opportunity to do something about it. I got to believe that most people that are going to take on the task of having chickens want something that's attractive on the property. They're not going to, most people are not going to just put something up to put something up.
Susan, did you have a comment?
Yeah, I had a couple comments. One comment I had was that this ordinance is written, has some of the needed requirements in it, but it also is missing some regarding a fee for the permit, an application process to get a permit. I believe in Waterloo they have neighborhood approval that's required, and I think that should be required. Also, some sites that I looked at for information talked about a required educational course to get the permit. You are caring for a live animal, and there's a lot of work regarding it, and there should be an educational requirement to make sure before you get the permit. There should be an inspection of the facilities to verify the correct application of the rules to make sure it's a healthy environment for the chickens. There should be consequences of violations. And I believe it only talked about the permit once issued. There's no talk about whether it need to be renewed. No talk about ventilation and shade or whether or not bedding was required or a chicken run. But also, there's nothing regarding the outside area or the fencing. Chickens do attract rats, raccoons, hawks, foxes, possum, and coyotes, cats or dogs. Therefore, a floor, like a cement floor, would be needed to keep predators from digging in and getting your chickens. The other thing that I wanted to comment on, I don't approve of a special interest of allowing one farm animal over other farm animals. We have had requests for goats, horses, pigs. I think if we're going to be looking at any ordinance, we should be looking at whether or not we want to include all farm animals, not just single-handedly picking one animal or two.
Are those items you mentioned an offer for an amendment or just discussion?
Just discussion.
Okay.
Well, I think Susan raises an important point in that the permit process, and David, correct me if I'm wrong here, but the permit process I think we've discussed is simply for building the structure, so it's essentially a a building permit more or less. It's not a license to own the animal. It's not a license to require care of the animal, sort of like we have for a dog or a cat. So I think that's an important distinction, and I think we should discuss.
The land use
To get a
permit,
permit, oh, go ahead, David, sorry.
land use permit would basically, the owner would submit a site plan showing us where the coop is going to go, and we would issue that like any other detached structure permit. So it'll be written for like an urban chicken permit to allow the erection and construction of the chicken coop.
But it's not an animal license. It's a
No,
it's a
this
building
is just
permit.
a permit to place that, so then we know where they're at, basically.
I guess a couple comments. We're talking about some chickens. In the new ordinance, it's worded that a land use permit is required. An inspection of the owner's property is required. If that's not allowed, there's a penalty. The owner may appeal to the council.
But that's for the building
only.
only.
Dog houses. I just feel like we're going too far. I mean, if we really want to dig into this that far, then let's require a permit for a dog house and a training class so everybody knows the right way to train a dog. I feel like people are going to do this on their own.
But we require an animal license for the dog, and we're not doing
I see
that
your point
here.
there. I think the land use permit takes care of that. We know so-and-so has chickens. I don't see any other, I don't think we need anything more than that.
I think there is a difference, because to license your cat or dog, you have to bring in a veterinary certificate, you have to show vaccination record. We're not saying that here. We're just saying you can build a chicken coop in your backyard and we're out, is essentially what we're saying.
As far as I understand, people that, you don't vaccinate chickens.
But my point is we require a demonstration of a certain level of responsibility. We're not doing that here. We're just saying you can build it.
I just disagree. I think it's overreaching. Let some people have a chicken and let's see how it goes. And if we find that there's a monstrous problem, I guess the other thing, horses have been allowed on city code for a number of years if you have the required land. So
Mr. Taiber.
there's instances where there's animals that are singled out.
This ordinance doesn't have a requirement on the land other than the 25-foot, though.
Which I think is plenty.
Mr. Taiber?
I think it's probably tempting to identify every reason, if you're opposed to this, every reason why you might be a reason for not voting it forward. But the truth of the matter is these people are stewards of animals, okay? They actually want to do what's in the best interest of their pet. I don't think that we have any reason for worry, and I'd be more apt to believe in, let's grant the freedom to people, the backyard freedom, and address issues as they come up. And I can almost assure us all that no issues will come up with this. So,
Yeah.
Mr. Wieland?
I'll throw out a comment or two. Being council at large, I got curious as to what the general population thought of having chickens in their neighbor's yard. And so I took time to talk to as many people as I could throughout the community, because I get all over the community. And the result was 80-20. 80% of the people didn't want them for whatever reason. 20% said they wouldn't mind them. The interesting point was when they told me they wouldn't mind them, I said, if I put my chickens in a coop next to your house, would you still not mind? No, I'd prefer not to do that, so it's not in my backyard, some of the 20 favored. The last day or two, I've gotten, I think, 8 to 10 memos from you folks. If I threw that in my population, it'd become about 38-72. So, but you're not a random study. You're a focus group. And I wanted to see what, in general, the people of Cedar Falls favored. And they clearly favor not having chickens in their neighbor's backyard by the number I gave you. Even if I threw you in, it'd still be in favor of people not in the community not wanting chickens in their backyard. So I did time to do a little study, because quite often we make decisions for the people of Cedar Falls without finding out what the majority, the silent majority, really want. And I get upset with the silent majority at times. I say, why don't you come forward, sit in the chambers? Well, we expect you to do the job for us. Well, my version of doing the job is go out and talk to people. Now, my study was not truly a random study, because random studies, you pick people at random to do it. And I have done random studies, but they take a good deal of time. But this is a good indication of where the majority of people stand in Cedar Falls. So I had to bring that up tonight.
Any further discussion by council?
Just one more point. Today, just for public record, we received, or I sent to Jackie 14 emails from folks in favor of this, and I've seen one opposed. So,
thank you.
That's the point.
Just to, I guess to Mark's point, I similarly have received emails and phone calls. I had 5 phone calls today in opposition of it, and I had, I think, 9 emails that were in favor of it and 1 email that was opposing it.
Right now there's, yes, Nick, go ahead.
I think poll taking is interesting. I think there's something else that we have to consider. I mean, America also takes great pride in protecting minority rights too and minority interests. And while maybe 51% of the people don't approve, maybe it's because they just don't understand. Maybe they're actually fearful of the change because it is just a little bit different. So I don't think that we should really let polls guide us. I'd prefer that we focus on property rights. Okay? If you're not actually impacting another person's right to enjoy their property, you're really causing no harm, right? We have nuisance codes. They're strong. We've strengthened them to a degree that is probably painful for most. But I think at this point, let's give freedom a chance. Let's give it a chance and see what happens. And I can say with almost absolute certainty that we're not going to have problems if we allow chickens to exist in our city legally.
Any further comments by council? We do have a motion and a second on the 2 amendments by Mr. Miller. I will ask for a voice vote. All in favor say aye on those 2 amendments.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, nay?
Nay.
Can we please have a count of the nays? 1, 2, 3, 4. That amendment does not carry. I'll now circle back up to the ordinance. We do have a motion and a second on that ordinance as is, and this requires a roll call vote, please.
Can we still comment?
You want more comments? We
Yeah.
just voted basically in essence for the same thing except 2 amendments.
I wanted to make one more comment on
Please.
what's being considered right now. Because it's the actual staff recommendation, or the attorney's proposal, right? That
This is that item, yes.
Yep. I just want to say, thanks to all of the kids and adults involved here for putting up what I think are the most rational, logical arguments you could put up. And, if we don't pass this, it's shame on us, really, because really I've never heard anything so articulate and so convincing as your arguments tonight. So thank you.
Thank you. We have a roll call vote necessary for the 2 motions on item 3. So I don't know what number that is.
Three voting aye, 4 voting nay, Mr. Mayor.
This ordinance does not pass and will not be up for further consideration. Item H is allow bills and pay